GTA 6, why can't they bring out GTA 4 remastered on PS5 and Xbox Series X? I just can't believe it. We've been waiting 10 years for this game. We played GTA 5 on PS4, GTA 5 on Xbox 360 and PC, GTA 5 on PS5, Xbox Series X. What about GTA 4? That's what they could bring out. Craziness. I mean, I'm watching other YouTubers talking about a delay in GTA 6. Crazy world, man. Just want a game to come out and it didn't come out. That was all over the place. I don't know what else to really say in this video. As you can see, I've got the fan on down there keeping me warm. I'm not really much of a person to be showing my face when I'm talking on a live stream, but you know, there's a lot of people been talking about delays in Grand Theft Auto 6. I do show my face on pre-recorded videos and stuff like that. You know, they kept us waiting for this game for such a long time. I know Mafia 4's coming out, but why can't they just bring out GTA 6 or a GTA 4 remastered or make another game? It's so stupid. It can be unreal, but you know, all we want is Grand Theft Auto 6. But I mean, imagine a GTA 4 remastered, what they could put into GTA 4. Some people would be happy for that, just to tie us over until GTA 6 comes out. I mean, they would really probably enjoy that sort of thing. The GTA 4 remastered. What do you guys and girls and ladies and gentlemen think? It's a good idea or not? I'll tell you what, it's absolutely freezing outside and cold. I thought I'd do another video onto YouTube, which I'm doing now, explaining things, which some people probably don't do, but it makes you think and just wonder. They keep delaying stuff all the time. And I can't understand why. Ubisoft games don't delay things. Assassin's Creed's Division game, Watch Dogs, they always inform people. And my concern is, will GTA 6 come out in 2027? Imagine that, if they backdate it even more just because the staff won't go into the you know, the work placement thing. They should just do it on the computer or remote things really, to do things and stuff. You can see there's my PS4 controller. PS4. Some people say, why are you not on PS5? I say, well, good question. Good question. Trying to figure out where the you know, it's there you go, they've got the light on there. I can turn the light off. Talking about brightening up the room with the light on. And then you can see where the room is now. On the shelf over that. PS4 games. Madness. Just trying to figure out where's the ammo things. I don't know why it never seems to work. Really, highlighting that. Feel free to send a message or we can talk on the live stream. Obviously, this is my bedroom, but yeah, not too bad, I suppose. Is what it is. Is what it is what it is. Will they ever bring out new games these days, Rockstar? Or will they make the same games? We need something new on the table. What they ever do. They never seem to do they? Always the same thing. Always this, always that. Yes! Thank you, Rockstar. Thank you. Why can't they just bring out a better game? It's not difficult, is it? But they all keep us waiting for every 10 years for new GTA. Why? It doesn't make no sense to me. I'm not really a fan for showing my face onto YouTube because I'm not. And I just get annoyed and angry like you, people out there. Why can't we have a better game? There's nothing much to play. It's Call of Duty, Battlefield, Assassin's Creed games. Then you want to delay GTA 6, really? That's just disappointing to me. It's a shame, innit? Ah, 4 people watching. Interesting. Getting all the views. This torch is just blinding me in the eyes. As you can see, it's coming through the eyes. Madness. Like I say, I get kind of shy on camera sometimes, but that's just me. You wouldn't have thought so of all the songs I've done on YouTube and stuff, but it's just looking at myself on YouTube. It's I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable. It's just, it's just look. You know what I mean? It's like a mirror or something. I mean, that fan's quite noisy down there, as you can see. Very noisy fan. Shift no, if no, if no, shift no, shift no, shift no, shift no. That's where I'm from, and shift no, if no. That's where my town's from. If no, be the shift no. Yep. If you don't live in the UK, we have these sort of plug sockets, as you can see there. So the plug sockets, you plug it into the wall, into there, and we have them plug sockets. Different to America, obviously, in any other country. As you can see, I've got things plugged into the wall over there. Carpet's clean, see? Carpet clean. Room clean, apart from a bit of things that have fallen off the shelf. But, you know, it is what it is. Feel free to send a message, or we can talk on YouTube, or, you know, keep the conversation going. Could keep the conversation going. Yeah. Speak about anything, really. Got myself an Ice Valley water. Ice Valley. Wonder why they call it Ice Valley. Must be some reason. Do 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 do. Ice Valley water. Ice Valley water. I think I'm in the dark still. Still quite tired. I don't think the messages work on this phone. Sure, it says some messages such as panel spam may not be visible. I wonder if that all chatted messages are visible. I don't know if that means people can speak on the chat or something. I mean, I've done this many times before. Some message panel may not appear. I can put on so many things, you know. I wonder why it's not working though. Madness. As you can see, that's my YouTube channel. That's all my subscribers I've got on YouTube. That's my channel there. Don't know what that's about. As you can see, I'm live. As you can see, got 4 people watching. It says 2 on there, but 4 watching on my channel now. And I want to get more subscribers. I've got quite a few here, and I'm going to keep building the subscribers up. That's what I need to keep doing. It takes ages to get subscribers, some people say, but I don't think it does. Depends what you do. YouTube. It's like filming myself again. As you can see, I'm filming the TV, and then I'm filming myself. Filming myself again. As you can see, I'm filming the TV, and then I'm filming myself. Filming myself again. So echoing. Yeah, I don't know what to really call this video, really. I might have a look at my music channels. Try to upgrade the music channel. Still got my gaming channel, obviously. Which is this one. That's my gaming channel. Do loads of computer gaming. I do enjoy that game, Kingdom Come Deliverance. That's a good game. Wish I made the second one. I never know if they will do. It takes ages to get through all my videos. I don't know why it takes so long. So flicking through all channels. Like wasting your life away. This is my music channel. See, that's my music channel. There are my subscribers on my music channel. There, see, still singing on it, or mimicking the words or whatever. 3,000 subscribers on here. That's 3,400 subscribers, and I hopefully get some more. I hope. So I put some more effort into it, and you never know. I mean, I'm naturally a shy person. I don't really speak on YouTube, but when I do all these videos, I pre-record the music channel ones and play my computer games. It just takes a lot sometimes for me to talk about a lot of things. I mean, I just upload the videos and people can see them for themselves. Perhaps I'm a bit shy. I am, but that's just me. Some days I have good days, some days I have bad days. Like today, I feel a bit up and down today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Try to have my bottle of water. It's not easy holding one hand. I don't know. Oh, tired. It's been a long day. I know I've got a lot that I usually do talk and say on my YouTube, but so some days I talk more than others. This is just me. This is the real me. I mean, I'm not putting a front on it about anything or pretending to be something I'm not, but it's just when you upload the video and make videos, it makes you feel better, doesn't it? But this is the real me. I'm like two different people. I mean, feel free to send a message or send a comment to me, or we can have a conversation, or you can, you know what I mean? I don't know if the messages are still working. I'm pretty sure they are working, but sometimes the world can be a struggle for a lot of us that are in this world. A big struggle. And many of us don't have friends to speak to. And there's a lot of people that judge people, which is not very nice. And you know, you always know in your heart which friends you can pick and have. And I like to make friends and talk to people. Some people do get on your nerves, but it's just the way they are. Everybody's different and individuals. So it is what it is. I'm watching a lot of YouTube. Other people on YouTube. I mean, this war with Russia and Ukraine is pretty bad at the moment. I can't believe those British people from the England have basically went to the Russian side and fight them there. It's their choice. What they do, it's their life. It's like betrayal to the country, isn't it? Some people just start the wars and they don't know how to stop it. Some people just don't know how to talk and communicate to other people. You know? I suppose I am in my zone at the moment. Just thinking things, making more videos. I mean, it keeps me happy and it keeps me busy. That's why I like it, you know, doing videos and that. It's good to be in default. Feel like the whole world can be lost at times. There's not enough hope for people out there. All the good people seem to have gone. I mean, there is good people around, but where have they gone? It's nice to have a friend to talk to and listen to. It makes you feel relaxed. Not like you're worth something, but you know what I mean. You know, you feel good in people's presence when you feel relaxed, and conversations and stuff. I mean, I don't like to feel uncomfortable, nobody else does, but if you're happy and comfortable, that's great. I mean, I'm happy and comfortable as well. Like I say, anyone can join my live stream. Just I'm busy a lot of the time. You know? I'm sure you are as well. Why are your friends with your enemies? I don't know. What do you mean, friends of enemies? I don't know, man. I don't know. Some people are different, aren't they? Each to their own is what I say. Why are your friends you've got enemies? No, I've got no enemies. If people like you, they like you. If they hate you, they hate you. There's always plenty more people out there who understand you. So yeah. I have to keep turning the phone around to see the comments. When enemies. Okay. Dear me. It's been a long day. Could it get any longer? There's never enough minutes in the day. Imagine just freezing time. There's always someone out there that's going to judge you and not like you. That's their problem. Just have a good heart inside you. Yeah. So you can be. It's because people don't understand one another. They just don't understand, and they get mixed signals and get confused, and they think you're saying things to them when you're not. You know, a lot of people misunderstand people. Some people don't think of other people anyway, but something I learned over the years. You know, just try and help. You know, I've got my own problems. I'm ADHD myself, autistic myself. I like to computer game. I like to, you know, watch films. I like to make videos. Not everybody's like me, but all I say to the people out there is, if you want a friend to talk to, you've got a friend here. I'm not saying everyone's like me, but that's all I can say. No, I meant to say, why are you having friends? You've got enemies. This is the world, an evil place. Here is a piece of kindness of anyone but people. Would you judge because you're different? No, not at all. Lots of us are different in the world. There's going to be people that judge you out there. But it's always nice to have a friend that actually understands and helps you. You know? There's not many good people around that listen and don't know how to, or they just don't know. Yeah. Trying to have my bottle of water, just give me a second. I need 2 hands to actually open the water. Sorry about that, I was just trying to open this. See? Hope and friends, yeah. Yeah, it's very true, yeah. Feel free to send a message if you like, or we can keep talking. and there's nothing much on the TV at the moment. I've got the PlayStation 4 on, obviously. It's talking about the greatest sporting moments of PlayStation, Disney, Netflix, Prime, Now TV. There's just nothing on. It's all the same things, basically. Oh look, Kitty's live. Kitty's live, look. Do you ever watch Kitty? She's live. I don't watch much of Kitty, but I know she's live because I was flicking through my YouTube channel and it pops up with people that are live. So some people may watch Kitty and enjoy her programme. But I don't really go into panels, like I say. That's just me. I like to do my own thing. And there's a lot of trolls that have been going into her panels and many other panels.
30,000.
So, bloody adverts on the TV again. So we'll look at this thing on TV.
There's a new tour walk.
Something about the army, I think.
The Defence Secretary has been accused of cheating over claims that more money is being spent on the armed forces. In an ill-tempered Defence Select Committee hearing, Conservative and Labour MPs joined forces in a surprise attack on Grant Shapps. They suggested that he was misleading ministers and the public over investment in the services, claims he strongly denied as he provided evidence to defend his position. Meanwhile, we're being told the UK would run out of ammunition and equipment in less than 2 months in a war against Putin's Russia. I'm in the studio now, Defence Editor.
That's very true. We'll do as well.
Robert Fox, thank you for coming, Robert. And down the line, we're joined by retired General
I get the full
Tim Cross,
screening.
who commanded one of the 3 divisions of the UK Field Army and chief political correspondent at the Times, Aubrey Allegretti. I think we might start with Aubrey to set the political scene and just explain how unusual it is to have Labour and Conservative MPs united in mounting an attack on the Defence Secretary in this way. Ill-tempered is one word to describe, or one hyphenated word, 2 hyphenated together to describe what was going on. But there are many others one could use to describe that rather vicious, violent.
We need to get prepared for war anyway.
Aren't there?
It certainly is quite strange to see both Labour and Conservative MPs sort of turning their fire, if you like, to use the military on the Defence Secretary in this way. And I think it reflects a sort of growing cross-party frustration that the government has set out its ambition to raise defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, which, it has to be pointed out, is above the NATO target of 2%, which some other countries don't in and of themselves meet. But that Rishi Sunak is somebody who held the purse strings, and was Chancellor and is now Prime Minister, hasn't yet sort of let the sort of moment happen where we're going to be able to reach that big sort of new landmark piece.
All we need to do is build our army up, put Australian people in the British army,
last year,
Polish people, French people,
integrated review, which is
to boost the army up.
10-year defence and security strategy.
USA could go in the British army.
Try and raise defence spending to this level. And so for nearly a year now, we've had people becoming frustrated and saying, well, when is the sort of magic moment that is going to arrive when this money is going to be granted?
Tank over there.
Because here we are, nearly close to the general election, and it hasn't happened yet. And as the former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has pointed out on numerous occasions, it's cheaper to prevent war than to engage into it afterwards.
Let me bring Tim Cross into this conversation. Tim, feelings running very high, and normally we say on both sides, but this seems to be one side, all united against Grant Shapps. The word cheating used, a very strong word, but is he, do you think, inflating the amount of money being spent on defence? Is he somehow double-crossing us? What's going on?
Well, first of all, I should say, for 7 years, I was the Army Advisor of the House of Commons Defence Committee, so I spent many happy hours preparing for these briefings and sitting in on them.
Yes.
And I watched the briefing yesterday, actually, because I was quite interested in what Grant Shapps would have to say. And notwithstanding the earlier comments, I would say that it was quite, some quite strong language being used, but I wouldn't say it was vicious or anything. I mean, I would offer that this is a very important part of our democracy. We have these committees to hold the government to account. and the members of those committees.
Can't all fit
generally
this in the
speaking,
screen,
I've been out
man.
from the Defence Committee, but I can say with
I can usually fit
absolute
everything in, but
hesitation at all, these guys do
so
not
much on the
hold their
screen.
party lines in these debates. They try to get to the bottom of what's happening in defence. Now, the numbers that were being talked about yesterday, and there were people from the civil service that were there yesterday presenting some of these numbers, are always notoriously difficult to get underneath. But my sense was that the committee were right to hold Grant Shapps to account, in that the way he was
Threats of
presenting
war.
these figures
Sharp accused to
overplay what was being spent
defence.
on UK defence, because
Spending
the
claims.
the debate was how much of this is going to Ukraine and other things too. So I think it was a good debate. I was glad to see it. You know, strong language being used, but nonetheless holding government to account. Grant Shapps having to really work hard to defend himself, and the committee trying to get underneath what's actually going on.
Do you think, Robert, your valiant endeavours, our valiant endeavours, and the valiant endeavours of everybody else mean that, I know we're not really responsible, but we've certainly had a good bash at doing this, mean that there is a general awakening to the need for defence to be taken seriously, the need for proper investment in the armed forces, etc.? Is this a concerted push against Grant Shapps part of a sort of enlightenment that's finally dawning?
I think there is a change of mood. I've said that very much.
Look a bit quiet.
Oh, we've got a bit of a problem with your mic. We'll sort you out, Robert, in a second, and then so I better go back to Tim Cross because he spent so much time in these committees that he'll know. Do you think that finally there is some kind of understanding or awakening to the fact that we need to rev up defence, that the notion of war isn't some kind of far away fantastical prospect, but it looks as if there's every chance that something could erupt and it could happen?
Yeah, I do. And I have to say, it's not often I hear Robert without hearing his voice, so it's nice to see him, but it's a shame we didn't want to hear him. But yes, definitely, this is winding up. There's no doubt about it. And the earlier comments about that this has been talked about now for a year. Other nations within NATO are increasing their defence spending, particularly places like Poland. Germany have announced some pretty large figures, the Baltic states and so on. So yeah, we have talked about this for quite a while. To be fair, the government last year did put more money into defence, but this moved to 2.5% or indeed 3%, which has been spoken about, because we're living in this period which some people are saying is like the 1930s, a sort of pre-war period. And as has been said before, spending money on defence now is important if you want to show firm deterrence and avoid having to fight a war, which would be very costly, not just in money terms, but in people, obviously. And we need the money now because one of the other things that was debated was if we do end up by fighting a war with Russia, we do not have the sustainability to conduct enduring, long-term, sustainable war-fighting operations, as in several months of fighting. The figure was quoted, I think, yesterday, that after about 2 months, we would begin to run out of ammunition and so on. So the sustainable logistic stocks we need to build up on need money now. They need contracts now from people like BAE Systems and others.
Yes. Let me bring Robert into this. We can hear you now loudly and clearly, I'm glad to say. So you hear this altercation going on. What are your thoughts? Are you glad it's happening at least?
Well, I'm glad it's happening.
Front page.
And very complimentary of you to say valiant efforts, but it's got absolutely nowhere. Come on, Tim Cross knows very well, and so does my colleague from the political staff. It's a game of smoke and mirrors. This wonderful lauded figure, aren't we great? We're the leader in Europe. We spend over 2% of GDP on defence. Well, a lot of that 2% that gets us over the 2% or on the 2% is for welfare, for pensions, even Korean War pensions. Come on, there has been a game about it. And I think there is a collusion between the two parties here that they know damn well, and for a very good reason I'll come on to in a minute. Now, defence and security will come into the debate in the election campaign, and neither wants it. And it comes into the campaign because Ukraine is losing. Ukraine this summer faces defeat, whether it's critical or decisive or even catastrophic, because that's going to affect us all. And I'm afraid, I know Tim Cross very well, admire him very much, but I don't think we've got the time that the advisors and so on are telling us. Things are really about to go very critical. You don't want to alarm the public, but the trouble is, Vanessa, there's a paradox here.
Yes.
The moment you alarm the public, say, you are really in trouble, you are really in trouble, if you see what I mean, and you're in a very difficult situation. We're on the cusp of that at the moment.
Yes, let me bring Tim Cross back in to respond to that. I mean, when you hear Robert Fox, an eminent and distinguished expert, say Ukraine is going to lose, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm suspecting that people watching and listening to this program feel a kind of tightening in the throat, a kind of, revving of a pulse, and feel worried, sick about what the permutations and repercussions could be, not just for Ukrainians, of course, but for us, because there's self-interest always at the heart of every response. So what do you think about what Robert has said? A, is he right? And B, if it happens, then what?
We should fight them back.
I mean, I did say, Robert, that we need to start spending this money now, and we need contracts now. So I agree with you entirely. This does need to be, dealt with today. We can't wait for the result of a general election, or indeed to wait for the results of the presidential election. Now, Vanessa, I think I said on your programme last week, but I've certainly said on a couple of others, I am worried about Ukraine. Now, Robert's using, some pretty strong language there about the potential catastrophe and so on, but there is no doubt that Ukraine is on the defensive and that they are struggling.
Send the Polish into Ukraine, and
they need the material stocks and so forth.
French said they were going to go in.
Who's taking an awful long time.
If it does fall,
and certainly not in any
NATO
position to
goes in
conduct
Ukraine.
Counter-offensive of all arms offensive operations and so on. So there's a real danger that in the spring the Russians will be able to will put more pressure on Ukraine and could potentially break through. There's no doubt about that.
And then what?
That was very true. Who knows what's going to happen?
Dragon Ball Super card game, Fusion World, physical version, and digital version to be released.
If that happens, then what happens?
Well, if it happens, we've got two choices. We either find that we have to help them hold the line somewhere else, or we have to acknowledge and accept that there will then be some formal negotiated settlement, which could put Ukraine, will put Ukraine in a very difficult position, and will put NATO in a difficult position. I mean, I don't go along with people like Macron saying we're going to start putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. I just don't think that's going to happen. But if Ukraine were to fall, then it would give Putin the confidence and all the rest of it to start putting pressure in places like the Baltic, with the Baltic states, but also in places like the Balkans and their support for Serbia and what's going on in places like Kosovo. It will just invigorate Putin, and I think he will then, try to continue to ramp up the pressure on us in the West generally.
If this is about to happen, does that mean that we and our fellows in NATO and around the world have mishandled this chronically, that we haven't responded with enough alacrity, with enough money, with enough weapons, just we have not realised, or we have and we've kind of allowed it to happen?
I think with alacrity, I think that we have been casual in a way we could manage it in the same way. We have not put together, as Tim would recognise, a coherent strategy. Build up.
No, I'm not gay.
And the people
Why would you think that?
Are advising of us, because they are on the front line of the Baltics, but also the Finns, newly joined Sweden, and Norway. Norway, the Finns, the Poles are on the front line. They say, look, it is really coming. And following the attack in the Crocus City Concert Hall, remember the rhetoric of Putin. Putin was not saying just Ukraine. We are against the neo-Nazi West, as he put it. And it is a major confrontation which we have to address through our allies. Britain is regarded, particularly by our northern allies, and fun enough, countries like Italy, who really want to help out in the East Mediterranean, and we've got to step up with it, because your point is absolutely right. We have vital interests. We have a big stake in maritime trade worldwide. We are a very big player still, but these connections are absolutely vital for communications, energy, but above all, food.
Right. Let's bring Aubrey Alibretti back into this. No, you don't need to be sorry, not at all. I just wanted to respond because Aubrey,
I win again.
Said by Tim
You lose.
and by Robert is enough to make your blood run cold.
Again.
I mean, it really is, and it sounds believable, credible, imminent, and exceptionally worrying. What is the political appetite? And at the moment, it's Rishi Sunak at the centre of all of this. What is the political appetite for addressing this, for funding this, for strategizing quickly, because we need, as we've just said, alacrity. We don't need to be casual, nonchalant, let this play itself out. We need presumably to orchestrate some kind of intervention that might either delay it or somehow ameliorate it if we possibly can. In other words, we need to get cracking on this, it's quite obvious. But is there any political appetite to? Is there the will to? We've got a general election at some point soon. Is this something that's going to be kicked into the long grass, which it doesn't sound as if it's something we could afford to do?
I think there's really a sort of difference of opinion stretching back over the last 10 years about how the UK should have responded to Russian aggression in the broadest sense. And when you think back, for example, to Russia's annexing of Crimea in 2014, there are certainly lots of people who think that the Conservative government wasn't sort of strong enough. It didn't escalate to de-escalate by try and step in a firm line in order to calm tensions down, fearing that to do so would only inflame the situation even more. And I think there's a lot of soul searching about whether or not the right kind of lessons have been learned from the UK's response over the last 10 years on that front. When it comes to the election, though, and the sort of views and perceptions of the wider electorate, it doesn't feel, when you look at the polling, that the issue of Ukraine or sort of global security or insecurity polls particularly highly amongst the sort of salience of voters at the election. But that's not to say that the ramifications or implications of a sort of Ukrainian defeat wouldn't be particularly stark and sharp in minds. So thinking particularly of the energy crisis that happened in the aftermath of Russia's full-scale invasion, the access to grain that we saw depleted, and that the implications for sort of domestic food security, as well as other kind of economic supply chains. All of those kind of issues, I think, would be much more front of mind with voters were they to happen. The trouble really is politicians convincing them that it weren't spending all of this money over other pieces of money. You know, we're looking at other public services and saying the NHS might need money, schools might need money. But you have to really convince voters that it's defence that
everyone needs money these days.
Taking more money than another political priority that voters might value more highly for now.
Let me bring Robert back in, because you were nodding, I think, approvingly to some of that. Does it have to be presented in a particular way to voters, or really is it just, oh my God, that Ukraine might lose and then what the hell happens?
I think Aubrey has presented the dilemma absolutely brilliantly.
Well, that's why we have him on the show. It's brilliant. That's why we have you all on the show.
Well, the question is, with these opinion polls, with these focus groups, and it's been half my life in journalism that I've done that. You know, when the Independent started writing leaders according to the taste of what its focus groups were saying, you know, it's a leader written by a focus group. Yeah. It's a question of whether you're going to be a leader or a follower. And if you're in charge, you've got to lead opinion if you detect that your nation, your community is in crisis, is in danger. You can't follow. And you're absolutely right in terms of following. Defence comes, what, 7% of priorities in continuing opinion polls. I was looking at some recently, but you can't say wake up and smell the coffee because you'll be accused of frightening the horses. But if you really frighten the horses, you know the horses have bolted. It's happened, and it's probably too late.
Let me bring Tim Cross in just for the final word on this, sir, if you wouldn't mind. You know, what is the thought that you'd like to leave us with on this? Grant Shapps, accused of cheating, and the imminent prospect of the Ukrainian defeat, and also mingled in our minds with the general election forthcoming. It's a hideous, chaotic muddle, really, isn't it?
Well, it is to some degree, but we need to keep a balance in this, and we need not to, get overly excited. But Robert's put his finger absolutely on the point. It's just down to leadership, and I'm afraid one of my mantras of my own life at the moment, I run my own company, is morally courageous leadership. That's what we need. We need statesmen and stateswomen who are prepared to stand up and convince people that this is a serious situation. Now, lots of people are talking about this, but you then come back to the earlier point: is talk is not enough at this stage. We need to see the resources being put in to enable us to take the actions that we may need to take in the near to middle distant future. So
somebody's got to take the argument of Houston, we have a problem.
Houston, we have a problem. Okay, well, you've just said it. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Terrifying.
Houston, we have a problem. So they said, didn't they? Houston, we have a problem. Well, I saw a bit of that thing that blowing up in that concert. concert thing.
Russia's security service chief Alexander Bortnikov has suggested that Britain, the US and Ukraine could have been behind the attack on a concert hall in Moscow that killed more than 130 people on Friday. Islamic State claimed responsibility for the
British,
shooting,
wouldn't
and US intelligence indicates ISIS-K, an Afghan branch of the Islamic State, was indeed behind the attack. This comes as Russia extends the arrest of Wall Street journalist Evan Gershkovich to June, just days before the one-year anniversary of him being held behind bars on these bogus charges of espionage, charges, of course, that he and the Wall Street Journal deny. I'm joined now by a financier whose firm was once the largest foreign investor in Russia, but who now campaigns against corruption in the Kremlin. It is, of course, Bill Browder. Bill, very good afternoon, good evening to you, I should say. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. It's been a lot of speculation about ISIS.
Just need to get
my interest that now they got into Russia.
Need to get my what's it called off charge. My headphones are on charge, so I'm gonna get them. Give me a second. Do 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 do. Headphones. I mean, I was charging them before, but I was charging the phone before as well because the battery went flat too, and that's what happens now. Squeaky bloody chair. Right.
Why they decided to attack in the way that they did, what the connection is with Turkey, what the connection is with the various sort of stans around the places where they are. What's your take on exactly who was responsible for that and exactly why they did what they did?
Well, so there's basically three theories about why this terrorist attack took place. Two of them are credible, one of them is not. The most obvious theory is what's on the surface.
I give anybody a chance, my friend.
ISIS, bunch of Islamic
nice
terrorists who committed this act of terrorism, announced that they were responsible for it.
Do you know what this reminds me of? The other day, Grand Day, when that Muslim guy blew up all them children and that thing. And now they do this in Russia, they blow up all the people in there and stuff.
Islamic people from the Republic of, or the country of Tajikistan. So that's theory number one. Theory number two
it's terrible,
is that Putin did this to himself. And that may sound very horrible and cynical, but he's done this before. Back when he was prime minister, before he was president, Putin was responsible for having the Russian security services plant a number of apartment bombs throughout Moscow and other parts of Russia, blow up a lot of citizens, create panic and disarray. He blamed it on the Chechens at the time, and then launched a brutal second war against the Chechens in which more than 50,000 civilians died. And that war, that this manufactured war where he blamed the Chechens, was what got him into the presidency. And so it's entirely plausible and within reason that
Putin blew up that guy on the plane as well, didn't he?
And the fact that the
Wagner group
regime is coming up with all these crazy theories. Theory number three, that somehow it's the U.S., Britain, and Ukraine that did it, would suggest strongly that theory number two is the most likely scenario.
Yes, I think so. And does that mean, therefore, that if he was to retaliate in some way, shape, or form, he would now have his pick of deciding where to retaliate? So, I mean,
I've seen your YouTube channel before.
Version of events. If it was Ukraine, he can retaliate there, which we don't believe that it is. If it was
like Britain, I say, I don't message in your YouTube. I never have
How does
them.
he retaliate against the Americans?
It's the trollers that message in your YouTube
the
channel.
reality is he can retaliate against anybody he wants to retaliate against. He doesn't need a terrorist incident to do that. I think that this thing happened either because they wanted to create a terrorist incident, or it happened just because they were victims of terrorism. But either way, he's going to try to use it for his own personal reasons.
I don't know if you're the real extraordinary cat. You could be.
These statements are meant for us. These statements are meant for the domestic audience.
There's a lot of fake
in Russia.
ones around.
He needs to convince them that for whatever it's worth, that he's not at fault. He's either not at fault for doing it, or he's not at fault for preventing it.
Yes.
But that's a hard thing to do, because he was warned by the Americans explicitly that there was a terrorist incident that was going to happen. It was going to happen at a concert place. The Americans were telling all Americans, stay away from concerts. And then, as far as we could see on videos, these guys just walked right into this place. There was no security.
Right.
And in fact,
Oh, you look at your
I've seen
timeline.
videos in the last few hours where policemen are walking around with police dogs while the terrorists are running around the concert center and doing nothing.
Right. Well, I was told there was a police station actually inside the venue as well. Whether or not they would open or whether they were doing anything is anybody's guess. But if it was a genuine terrorist attack, I'm also told that the resentment that these particular ISIS-K groups feel against Russia goes back to Syria, goes back to...
As you can see, I've got my hand here,
of Bashar
and I'm
Assad,
holding the phone with my hand.
the way he
It's
treated
cancelled
ISIS.
to be a bit achy.
Well, there's no question that Putin is a very unpopular person in the Middle East for what he's done in Syria. He's also a very unpopular person among Muslims for what he did in Chechnya.
Right.
In Chechnya, he massacred huge numbers of civilians, and they didn't forget that, and their Muslim brothers didn't forget that, and so, I don't think anything justifies killing civilians, but there's a lot of angry people out there, and it's a big, pot of anger just brewing.
Of course, there's going to be angry people. That's people's family and loved ones have been hurt and affected.
If you and I had been standing in Moscow with a sign that said Putin is a criminal, we'd be arrested within a minute.
Right.
Just the two of us.
Yes.
But it took them an hour and a half to bring a team of people into the theater when it was on fire, and long after these perpetrators had left. And so it says there's either gross incompetence among the security services, or they were involved and they just had to wait a while to make sure it was all sort of going to plan.
Yeah. Do you suspect there may be more of these types of attacks for whatever reason?
Well, if we look back to 24 years ago when Putin first came to power, first there was one apartment building that was blown up by his security services, then another one, and then another one, and it created a sense of mass panic, of true feeling of horror and terror. I was in Moscow at the time. I remember going to sleep at night wondering whether my apartment building was going to blow up, and by the time he was done, the entire Russian population was on his side wanting to exact revenge. And let's just say that there's another one of these incidents, and they can successfully blame it on some outside force, maybe on Ukraine or whatever. That would be a good way to energize the Russian people, get them up for a mass conscription. The other thing that's important to know is that Russia's running out of troops. They need more troops. They need more warm bodies to be killed in battle. And the best way to do that is to draft up 500,000 other young men, which would be unpopular, but maybe it wouldn't be so unpopular if there was, people frothing at the mouth about some foreign enemies that are bringing terror to the Russian streets.
No, of course. I was going to ask you about what you see happening for the rest of this year in Ukraine in terms of the way that the war is conducted, if you like, by Putin, because obviously there's going to be a US presidential election. Donald Trump has said that, he would bring a stop to the war immediately as soon as he got elected, if he was elected. Biden doesn't seem to be too sure precisely where he stands on putting money in. Britain still seems to be very much about backing Zelensky with money and weapons. I mean, what's going to happen, do you think?
Well, so Biden is very clearly wanting to give Ukrainians more money and weapons. The Speaker of the House of Representatives has blocked a vote on it because he's taking instructions from Trump, who inexplicably wants to sabotage the Ukrainians. And so I would predict that the $63 billion that's been blocked will become unblocked in the near future. That will allow the Ukrainians to buy the weapons they need. I don't think the Russians will make that much more progress in the near term, as long as the Ukrainians get that money and get those weapons. And then the big wild card is November this year when the election happens. If Trump does get elected, he said he's going to cut off Ukraine. Why? We don't know. But if he does, then we have a much bigger problem here in Europe, because that means we've got to basically double the amount of financial aid and military aid to Ukraine, because the Americans will be sitting it out. And do we have that money? Do we have the will? I don't know. And if we don't, then the Russians will win in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And if they do win in Ukraine, then their next stop is the Baltics. And those countries happen to be NATO allies, and we have a duty, a treaty obligation to protect them.
Yes.
And so,
well, I mean, it's slightly. I mean, from Trump's perspective, it's slightly different to that, isn't it? I mean, he would say, actually, no, he wants to stop the war. What he doesn't want to do is continue to bankroll it. So, I mean, I take your point absolutely, but his argument is that, the American people don't want to continue to give money. And there's a lot of people in this country as well who don't think we should be giving billions and billions and billions of pounds to a country to continue a war when we haven't got very much money for our own troops.
Well, we could either spend billions and billions or hundreds of billions when we're at war with Russia. So it all depends on.
Yeah, well, that all depends if you believe.
Yeah,
But hang on, Bill. That all depends if you'd actually believe that Russia would wage war on NATO. I'm no expert, but I know there are a lot of experts who don't believe they would do that. There's a lot of saber rattling going on, isn't there?
Well, I mean, all you have to do is listen to the speeches coming out of the Kremlin, and they're saying Ukraine is just the first stop. I mean,
Yeah,
I think,
but as you say, but as you know better than anyone, Bill, so much of that is for domestic consumption as well, isn't it?
Well, they pretty much said what they were going to do all the way from the start. They said they were.
Poland will probably be next.
Do you want to gamble?
That's why 20,000 troops
went
to England to
cheap insurance right now. And I would
Poland.
argue that whatever the cost is right now, it's a hell of a lot less than it would be.
At the moment, with all of the aid that we have given to Ukraine, the war does not seem to be doing anything other than being in a sort of stalemate where the wheels continue to turn in the mud, if you like, but nobody's really gaining any ground. Nobody's really winning. It's a kind of a zero-sum game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, but you can sort of fantasize and say, God, I wish there was peace. Putin doesn't want peace. Putin wants to take over Ukraine. That's the problem. We didn't ask for this war.
Yeah.
He's the one doing this war. It's not.
You might make that argument.
Wishing for things to happen doesn't make them happen.
I wish you'd make that argument to the UN, because maybe they would call for a ceasefire, which is what they've just done in Gaza, despite the fact that Hamas wants to destroy Israel, and they're backing a ceasefire without the hostages being given up, but they don't seem too interested in having a ceasefire in Ukraine.
Well, even if the UN was to call for a ceasefire in Russia, Putin's not going to do a ceasefire. And so, what do you want to do? I mean, do you want to just let Putin win, or then put ourselves in the wrong way?
That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying that the point of view that you put forward there as being, Trump is wrong and everybody else who wants, to fight Putin is right. There are two sides to every coin, and I'm just pointing out that there are some people who agree with Donald Trump that it would be better to try and stop the war.
Well, and basically, Donald Trump's the only person in the Republican Party who has this position. All the other Republicans in Washington understand that what's at stake here, that basically world peace is at stake here if we don't stop Russia.
But he's also the only Republican that will probably get into the White House. So, I mean, you have to take him seriously as much as you may not want to.
And I do take him seriously, and I think we're in deep trouble as far as Ukraine is concerned if he becomes the president of the United States.
Well, we shall see. Finally, let me just ask you about this terrible situation with our colleague, Owen Gershkovich, who has now just learned once again that he will be will be withheld and denied freedom until June. I mean, how much longer can they get away with this? I heard you on James Max's show saying, this is a rogue state. They do what they like. They don't pay attention to the rule of law. I get all that. Is there anything that we can do to get Owen out?
Well, I think that by talking about him continuously, by calling for his release, it keeps the government of the United States on one point here. I mean, the one thing you need to understand is that Putin took him hostage because he worked for the Wall Street Journal. He would obviously be considered to be a high-value person for the United States. The moment that he was arrested, President Biden said this shouldn't have happened, and they designated him as unlawfully detained under the Levinson Act. And so he's the highest priority U.S. hostage right now, and the Americans want him out very badly. Putin has somebody he wants out of Berlin, out of a German prison very badly. I suspect a deal will get done at some point in the future. These things take longer than they should. But in the meantime, it's a very, very unpleasant situation for a young man who did absolutely nothing wrong, who was just plucked out of the street because he happened to be an American working for the wrong organization as far as Putin was concerned.
Yeah, it is a shocking state of affairs and terrible for his family. But Bill, listen, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to us. Bill Browder, they're reporting in to us on the latest situation in Moscow, where you can always have one or two or maybe even three truths if you like.
There's a lot of stuff on the TV.
For these soft triple chocolate cookies, I use my favourite fridge staple, Flora Battery. It's made from natural ingredients, it's dairy-free and palm oil-free too.
we're watching part of Exercise Dragon, which is part of Exercise Steadfast. Part of Exercise Steadfast, one of the largest NATO drills since the end of the Cold War. British and Polish troops training here together as part of NATO's enhanced forward presence, particularly as a show of force, a reminder of NATO's skills to dust off the capability of NATO forces to be able to deter Russian aggression.
So it's Polish and British infantry working together after a period of build-up training to be able to execute attacks and clearances in really complex terrain, such as the urban environment you just saw them operating in. There are 1,700 British soldiers deployed at the moment. That is the headquarters of the 7th Light Mechanised Brigade Combat Team, the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglia Regiment, the Scots Dragoon Guards, and then supporting forces from Royal Engineers, Royal Artillery, Royal Signals, Royal Logistic Corps. Down over there you've got Polish tanks, Leopard tanks firing their main armament, which is a 120mm armament. They're also firing their chain gun. You've had Polish helicopters in the overhead firing their armaments as well, mainly chain gun. And then in depth you can hear American artillery and American mortars firing.
The British soldiers exercising out here in eastern Poland are the tip of NATO's spear. They are the very high readiness joint task force land, held at 48 hours notice to move at the commands of NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, Europe. Now, what we've seen already is British and Polish forces practicing fighting in built-up areas, taking buildings, houses one by one, as they would expect to do if they were fighting for a contested town or hamlet. But more broadly, this is Exercise Dragon is part of a much larger Exercise Steadfast Defender, the largest NATO military drills since the end of the Cold War. And of course, that is fundamentally about NATO preparing to go to war with Russia. But it's not just about preparing for war. The very act of exercise is also a show of force, and that show of force NATO hopes is also a deterrent. It's about demonstrating that the countries in this...
It's on for a while, this video.
Half an hour ago in that building, which was he was just so made up that you were all here. He is so pleased to have, as he put it, the Brits have landed. This is his description. But not just any Brits, the desert rats. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that. The reason I wanted to come here is because, although in Poland everyone knows that there's this big exercise going on, I would say back home most people are unaware of this enormous NATO exercise. Not just large, the biggest since the Cold War, the biggest for 40 years. Gorbachev was in power in the Soviet Union. Something of this size happened. So this is really, really significant. And I want to make sure that people back home know not only that it's going on, but also the enormous British contribution to it, which you guys are right at the front line of. I think there's something like 90,000 personnel involved, maybe 96,000. We are producing 19% of that. So you guys are part of the biggest single contribution of any country has come from the UK. And that is, just to put that into proportion, there are 32 countries in NATO now, thanks to Sweden joining last week. 32 nations. We're providing 16,000 of the army, about 20,000 of the overall personnel. So we are not just contributing, we are over-contributing to this extraordinary exercise, and it couldn't come at a more significant moment. We've got, last week I was in Ukraine talking to Zelensky, who, let's face it, needs that he can be given. Because this is a moment where, a moment of discipline, a moment where we have to show that we are not just up for it in words, but that we are prepared to put our money where our mouths are. So we have £2.5 billion, which we're giving to Ukraine this year as part of our work towards making sure they can help to liberate. Last week I announced 325 million in drones. So that technology I was just looking at over there with the drones, in 2 or 3 years' time, will be at another level entirely for our British Armed Forces. But I fear we need to do more, and one of the things that we need to do is make sure that Putin understands that NATO is winning, and that he can't just carry on moving west. And that is where you guys come in. That's why I'm so pleased to come here and see you all today, and thank you for what you're doing in person, and actually to reflect the words of my Polish counterpart half an hour ago. You guys are bloody heroes. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Keep it up. Thank you. I'm going to go back home and tell people about what you're doing. He is the person who's doing the saber rattling. There is no excuse for that. That's irresponsible of him. And actually, all that needs to happen to resolve this is he needs to drive back east and get out of the democratic country that he decided to invade 2 years ago. And that is the way to bring this whole thing to a conclusion. But it is absolutely irresponsible of him to talk about nuclear weapons in that way. Everyone agrees.
Well, anyway, I'm going to end the video. Thank you for all joining me, and see you in the next video. Peace. Take it easy. I'll be back again soon. Peace.